High school can be tough. We'll help you navigate some of the areas you need help with, including the college preparation process by providing advice for families. Every student is different and has a unique path. That's why we created this podcast. Our innovative and intentional approach builds confidence in the individual student. Listen each week to find out how students can score better on college placement tests with techniques and methods that build confidence, beat test anxiety, and identify strengths within each student. You're listening to Simply Smarter with hosts Caleb and Jill. Check out our blog at GetSmarterPrep.com for more college prep-related topics.
Have you ever wondered what a good ACT score really is? On today's episode, we will be tackling just that. We're going to break down what a good to great ACT score is and how it applies to today's students. I'm your host, Jill Purcell, and this is my colleague and the president of Get Smarter Prep, Caleb Pierce.
Hey, y'all. How are you?
Oh, y'all.
I know. I've been trying to bring y'all into my lexicon. I just think that it just kind of makes sense.
It does?
I'm not Southern in any way.
No, you're not.
But I just kind of like y'all.
Oh, okay.
I'm bringing it to KC.
All right. I mean, some people come up from Texas, Oklahoma, so it's a thing.
People who are smart and know better that come up to KC, right?
Well, I came down. Right. I mean, I'm from South Dakota, so.
True. And I'm from Denver.
It was very northern, you know. You betcha.
I like it.
If you can say y'all, I can say, you know.
And big.
You guys. Don't you know?
I like it.
Anyway.
Welcome, guys. We're so glad to be with you.
Podcast number 2. We are happy to be here. We're going to talk about what a good ACT score is. Let's start.
Yeah, let's dive in.
What is a good ACT score, Caleb?
Oh my gosh. I get that question like almost nonstop. Like I hear it all the time. And it's not just here, but even when I worked in higher ed for 11 years before Get Smarter Prep, people would always say, hey, what is a good ACT score? And it's so relative. Like,
right.
It just depends on each student and what your goals are and all that. So we hope to help you kind of manage that process and understand what that goal is and help you kind of get moving in the right direction for that goal.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I hear all the time, actually, what a good ACT score is.
You do?
See if this is a myth buster or not. Ready for it?
I'm ready.
A 30. I want a 30.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think about 85% of students who come to Get Smarter Prep say that.
Yeah.
And clearly, a 30 is not achievable for everybody. Or even if we could with a lot of time and energy, maybe it still doesn't make any sense for what a student wants to achieve.
Right.
So, for context, again, I'm all about context. Let's make sure we're looking at what makes sense for the student. But how a student does on the ACT is compared to how all their peers do on the test, right?
Right.
So they use a basic bell curve that we learned way back in the day, and they are looking at scores based upon that. And how you do based upon everyone else is how you get your score.
Okay.
So a 30, for instance, is the 94th percentile for college-bound students.
That's super high.
Oh my gosh. That means only 6% of students nationwide will score a 30 or higher on the ACT.
Right. And that is college-bound students.
Yeah.
So that's not everybody in your class.
Yeah, another big misconception, right? So not every high school graduate is going on to college, and really it's actually only about 40% are going on to college right away.
Okay.
So the population that you're testing and that this is based upon is just very different than what you're seeing in school. So the middle 50% of 21, for instance, is you're doing better than half of students going to college and not as well as the other half that are going to college. But you're probably more like the 75th, 80th percentile of high school graduates.
Okay. So what is this 21 you mentioned?
Yeah. So it's one of those benchmarks that we kind of like to assess and look at when we're kind of preparing. 21 is that national average. It's that median score. Again, that's the national average, to be completely precise. And again, that's how they're creating their scale.
Right.
That's why this weird thing from 2 to 36 actually exists, is because they're structuring it in a way that kind of fits this bell curve, and that 21 happens to be the very top peak of that curve.
Okay.
So what about here in some of our local places, or even in Kansas? What's our state?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
Kansas average 21.7. So right there with that national, a little bit higher. In the Johnson County School District, we have 3 different school districts. Blue Valley is going to come out on top at 25.4. Olathe School District is 23.8, and Shawnee Mission at 22.7. So all above Kansas average and national average. That's fantastic.
And that's the 3 big ones here in Johnson County, right?
That's the 3 big ones. Yeah, on the Kansas side.
Even more impressive, again, are these private schools.
Yeah.
Right? We have so many great schools in the KC area.
We do.
But some of these private schools, these scores are pretty impressive. What are those, Jill?
Notre Dame de Sion is 27.1. Rockhurst is 26.5. Wow. St. Teresa's 27. And the Barstow School is 28. Wow. That's fantastic.
That is really, really solid.
Really good.
Oh my gosh. Let's put that in context.
Yeah.
The 28 for Barstow. A 28 is actually the 87th percentile.
Wow.
No, I take that back. It's the 90th percentile.
Whoa.
Holy cow.
That's fantastic.
That means that their average student is doing better than 90% of students going to college.
Really great resources here in Kansas City.
Great work, guys.
Woo. Fantastic.
So basically, this context matters. We want to make sure that we're begin at this place. Like if you have a 17, a 30 probably isn't a good goal for you. Whereas again, if you are a 29, maybe a 30 isn't a good goal for you either. Not because it's so low, but maybe it's not going to get you anything more.
What
right?
do you mean?
So we want, again, we have the context of the test itself, but let's also really kind of dig into the things that actually matter when we're setting our goal. And that's going to be looking at college admission rates and what that kind of middle 50% of each school looks like.
Yep.
And then also, of course, scholarships, because who turns away free money?
I don't.
Yeah.
Everybody wants free scholarship money for college. College is expensive, guys. You guys, college is expensive. There's my northern accent again. You can say y'all.
Y'all.
Hey, y'all. College is expensive.
No, I don't have any other southern to me. It's just y'all.
Fixin' to. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Fixin' to. All right. Well, we are fixin' to look at the college acceptance average ACT scores for admittance.
Yeah, let's look local. What about KU?
What about KU?
It's only 30, 45 minutes down the road.
Yeah, it's close. That's where my kids are going. Yep. Not too far away from mommy.
Oh, yes.
Just kidding. They can go anywhere they want to, but my fingers are crossed.
But really. Yeah.
Yeah, 23 to 28 is the average at KU.
That's at middle 50%. Colleges love talking in terms of this, whether you're looking at ACT scores or GPA or whatever else. They're looking at that middle 50%. That means the bulk of their students, their 50% is right there in that range. They're going to be 25% lower and 25% higher.
Okay.
But we always encourage students to kind of find those good fit schools where their scores are in that middle 50%.
In the middle.
Give them a really good good shot at getting accepted.
Yes.
And probably a good fit academically as well.
I like that. I like it. What about TCU, Texas Christian University?
Yeah, that's one of those that we hear a lot around here. TCU and sometimes SMU, those get lumped together.
Okay.
And sometimes Baylor, right? But let's look at TCU and SMU in particular. So TCU, their average scores, that middle 50% is 25 to 30.
Okay, a little bit higher than KU.
Yeah, a little bit higher. And what is that 25? Do you know what that percentile is? The 78th percentile.
Yeah, still
all the way up to that 94th percentile. So so again, students are doing really well on their ACTs if they're heading to TCU. Now keep that in mind, what I just said, 25% of students are scoring below that 25. So there are students in the low 20s, maybe even a high teens if they have a great resume and other supporting pieces.
Yeah. What about the other supporting pieces? So you have a great resume, you have a good GPA.
Your GPA, your strength of schedule, maybe you had a great interview, maybe your essay is just amazing.
Right.
All these extracurricular activities, leadership, those can really play a big piece in the admission puzzle as well.
All right, very good. Very good. So SMU, we were talking about that a little bit. I don't think we ever got to the acceptance rate. Yeah. 28 to 32.
Yeah, 28 to 32.
A little bit higher.
It is. It would be what I would consider a selective school.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about some highly selective here in a little bit, right?
Okay. So when you say selective, is there a difference between maybe selective and elite? Would you say there's a difference, or are they about the same?
Yeah, so that selective, anytime we kind of see that 20 in the 20s there at the beginning, I would call it a selective school.
Okay.
Personally. Highly selective is when when we were talking about schools with an average score of 32 or higher.
Ooh.
And we'll see a couple of those here in just a few. So SMU, again, that middle 50%, 28 to 32. TCU and SMU usually fall in together. And if a student's looking at one, usually they're looking at the other.
Yeah.
And then once they go and actually visit, one of them will get dropped pretty quickly because they're very different schools, different fields on campus.
Yeah.
So it just depends on that student preference.
What about Nashville?
Ooh, a little Belmont. Yeah, there's a lot of great schools in Nashville, but let's talk about Belmont.
Okay.
A lot of students in this area have been mentioning an interest in Belmont. They're right there in the heart of Nashville, so many opportunities with internships and whatever else, but great opportunities in the music production field and music in general.
Podcasting?
That's
maybe.
This is part of their class, probably.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Shoot.
Do we get an A? No.
So Belmont's average scores are 24 to 29.
Okay.
So again, getting there in the mid 20s would really set you up pretty well to get accepted at Belmont.
Very good. What about Northwestern?
Yeah, so Northwestern is one of those that I was referring to earlier, what I would call highly selective. It's probably in the top 20 most selective, maybe top 30 most selective schools across the country. And a lot of students in our area are trying to shoot for the stars and get into these schools that are really going to help them and challenge them along the way. And Northwestern, their average score is actually 32 to 34. Oof. We're talking 97th to 99th percentile, right? Pretty wild.
I mean, if you're getting in there, that's awesome.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things really well, apparently. Right?
And that's very similar to Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame. And again, a lot of our students, not just at the Catholic schools in the city, but really even in our Blue Valley districts or Shining Mission or wherever else, there are students who are there's just so much tradition at Notre Dame and,
there is.
and a lot of family ties and things like that. So some great opportunities there if you are scoring very, very well.
Yes.
That 32 to 34 range.
Yes,
again.
a real quick story. I had a high school friend who's on the crew team. She went to Notre Dame her freshman year. I clearly remember she got a 32, and I was so excited for her. She ended up only going 1 year, but it was very exciting that she went there, and her sister actually graduated from there as well. So
that's pretty awesome.
Yay, Notre Dame.
Made it
Fighting
a
Irish.
Family, made it a family event.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
And then the one other one that I just want to briefly touch on, actually two more, and they're kind of in that same score range. What I would consider selective is Santa Clara out in California.
Ooh, Cali.
Let's head out.
Take a road trip. Who wants to come?
Road trip. That means you're driving across like Colorado and Utah.
Yeah. It's spring.
It's doable. Let's do it.
It's doable.
Let's go.
Let's just get on a plane. Never mind.
Better
I changed
idea.
my mind.
So Santa Clara is very popular these days, and their average scores are the 28 to 32. University of Virginia going the other direction. There's a few more trees if you drive east than if you drive west. University of Virginia is one of those public schools that is pretty selective, kind of like a Michigan or a UCLA or Cal, Berkeley or UT or whatever it may be.
Sure.
And their average scores in that 29 to 33 range.
Okay, so a little bit more selective, like you said.
Absolutely.
Cool. What about scholarships? So we know what it kind of takes for that middle 50 acceptance rate for all of these schools that we talked about. What about scholarship brackets and levels, and how does your ACT score reflect on your scholarships? Yeah,
let's cut back to KU again, and a good local example. So students who go to KU, tuition isn't quite as high if you're an in-state student, right?
Nice.
So their scholarships aren't going to be as significant or as large. And what we have here and what we'll talk about are actually in-state tuition and in-state scholarships, not what you would get if you live in Iowa or you live in New York or wherever it may be, right? So if a student scores a 24 on the ACT and has a 3.75 GPA, they'll actually start receiving some scholarship money.
Nice.
Right? So you'll get $1,000 per year. And then if you have a 25 and a 3.5 GPA, then you start getting that same scholarship. So just a little bit lower GPA, a touch higher ACT, and it starts kind of paying dividends. Right?
What about a little bit of a higher scholarship?
Yeah, so that 28 on the ACT and a 3.5 will actually double your scholarship money to $2,000.
Wow.
A 31 and 3.75 will jump you another $2,000 to $4,000 a year. And a 32 and a 3.85 gets you $5,000 a year.
Okay, so let's talk about the GPA for a little bit, because I see 3.75 on here twice, but one's an ACT score of 24, and the other is an ACT score of 31. So that's a big ACT jump,
pretty
right?
Big difference, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the institutions are coming up with their own scales, and they're trying to figure out, like, hey, what is the sweet spot? How do we maximize enrollment, essentially? And they've just kind of determined that a 24 and 3.75 and a 25 and 3.5 kind of mean the same thing for their population. So they've kind of offered the same scholarship amount for that. Whereas then, as that GPA is still really high, you then have to jump up quite a few points, 7 points on the ACT scale to get that extra.
That seems like a lot.
$3,000 a year.
Yeah,
that is a lot.
And for sure,
take some work for sure.
It does.
The other thing I like to point out at this point is, when did we say a 30? We didn't.
Right?
A 30 doesn't get you anything more than a 28.
You're so right.
So if you have a 27, your goal should be either a 28.
1 point.
Or a 31.
Yeah.
Like a 30 literally means
nothing.
Because you're going to get accepted already.
Yes.
Right? So it's about making sure that you're targeting what's important, and that's enrollment. And then, of course, your career in the long run.
Right. At the college that you want to go to.
Right. Exactly.
Not where your friends go.
Very true.
Tricky.
We also talked about TCU earlier.
We did. So 29 on your ACT with a 3.69 on your GPA. Holy moly. It's going to get you $10,000 a year.
Yeah, we are talking the 93rd percentile, though. I mean,
fair enough.
Scholarships don't even begin until you're in the top 7% of scores on the ACT.
Okay, here's the 30.
And a 3.69.
Here's the 30 for TCU.
Here it is.
Okay, you jump $4,000 a year. You have a 3.75 GPA, and you have your big 30, right? $14,000.
$14,000 a year. That's pretty solid.
That's solid.
So TCU is a private school, so it is. If you look at the actual cost, it's kind of pricey. But $14,000, I challenge any high school kid to find a part-time job where they're going to make the equivalent of $14,000 over 4 years, so $56,000.
Yeah.
In a part-time job.
Well, if you make that doing a part-time job, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Maybe some better choices. What about a full scholarship, full tuition?
So at TCU, you have to score 34 or higher in order to achieve a full tuition scholarship. But so again, top 1%, 99th percentile there. And then 31 and 33, there are actually some pretty good jumps in there too. So again, from a 29 to a 33, you go up 4 points and you actually more than double your scholarship from $10,000 a year, which is a lot, to $21,000 a year.
Yeah, and that might be the difference of, going there or going to a different school.
Oh yeah.
That's
definitely
huge. I mean, you have to think about your future and how you're going to pay off all these student loans.
Right. So true.
Absolutely. Okay, well, go back to Belmont University in Nashville.
So Belmont is kind of a cross between the two that we talked about, KU and TCU. And that Belmont, their scholarships begin at a 27. So it's kind of in between. And then they actually only have 3 tiers that they kind of demonstrate. Again, sometimes colleges are not fully upfront and they don't disclose everything as clear as we would like. KU does a great job, for instance, where they just have a matrix and you just find your GPA and your ACT score and boom, they spit out the number of how much money you're going to get, right?
And you can just find that online.
Yep.
Generally.
If it's there, it's generally fairly easy to find. If you don't find it right off the bat, it may be because they just don't disclose that information.
And how do you find out that information?
So then once you go through the entire application process and you're admitted, that's when they will make an actual scholarship and financial aid package award at that point.
Okay, good to know.
Yep. So Belmont, their scholarship started at 27, and this is where we get into it's kind of ambiguous. If you have a 27 and a 3.7 GPA, you're going to get between $3,000 and $10,000 a year.
Whoa, there's
That's quite a range.
Quite a range there, Caleb.
So especially when we start looking at private schools, they're going to look at admissions and financial aid on a more holistic note. And some of it may be need-based. So if you are a lower income family, they may give you the full amount. Or maybe if you're the high end, maybe you'll get the low amount, right?
Okay.
Or it could also have to do with other pieces. And again, there's so much in predictive modeling and everything else in higher ed, just like any big business, essentially, right? Where they are going to be determining like, hey, how much do we think it'll take to get a student like you to come to Belmont or said university?
Sure.
So it's, again, kind of a weird world, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to be functioning from, right?
I guess.
So then a 30 gets you additional scholarship money, maybe even up to a full tuition scholarship. And then 34 or higher, again, is just going to even get you even more money from there.
Oh, that'd be so great. Yeah.
That'd be all right.
Yeah. So really that infamous 30 it's there.
Yeah, we busted that myth, I think.
We did.
Right?
It's there, but it's just, maybe you only need a
Depends on the
28.
school.
Maybe you need a 31. Yeah.
Yep.
So take a look at your schools. How do you figure out what your baseline score is for your ACT without everybody else figuring out?
Right.
Being sent to all these schools.
Okay, so we offer practice tests every Saturday morning for anybody in the community. So they can come in and establish that baseline and know how they're doing.
And it's not shared with anybody else.
Not shared with anybody else. We think it's pretty difficult to know how to get to your goal. If your goal is a 30, right? How do you get there? It's going to look very different if you have a 28 compared to if you have a 22, right? It's just going to take a lot more time and energy if you have that 22, if you have the guts to go for it, right? So we want to make sure we have that good baseline. And the other thing that I want to cautious families out there about is ACT and College Board have been cracking down on this a lot lately, where a student, basically they have all this technology and they're looking at all the data points in the classroom where the student is taking the test. And this happens most often when a student sees a significant jump. So they took a test as their baseline, but it was an official test.
So maybe in September.
Right. And then they go and really study and they take the December test and they kill it, right? They went up 6 points. Fantastic.
Yeah, huge jump.
You start applying to all of your colleges. You get accepted in the fall. And then ACT says, oh, that was too big of a jump. We think you cheated.
No way.
Now you have to resubstantiate your score, that higher 6-point jump.
What?
And if you don't, they can rescind your scholarship. They can rescind your score and tell colleges that, hey, they didn't really have the score, and now maybe your admittances will go away.
It's
not
not
a mess,
fair.
right? And the really annoying part is it typically takes 6 to 8 months after you've taken the test for them to actually send this letter out to you.
Oh, man.
So another great reason to get a baseline with us, because again, it's not going to go to colleges. Nobody's going to expect to see it, but it does give us that same data point. It allows us to make sure we have a good game plan.
Right. So then when you take the ACT for the first time and it counts, it's your true score. You're safe. You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
Awesome. So every Saturday at both of our locations. I love that. So after we've taken that baseline, we have that baseline score for our ACT. Next, we have to look at our test dates to figure out what's a good test date for each student.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to look different for everybody. The two big things that we base that test date decision on, and again, this is maybe a little foreshadowing for next week, is going to be making sure that we are looking at extracurricular activities and we are looking at the student's curriculum, particularly in math.
Why in math?
That is the one section of the ACT where students are maybe learning a little bit more in high school that'll help them.
Okay.
So basically based upon the Algebra 2 class. So if a student is taking Algebra 2 as a sophomore, they're going to be ready for any of the tests during junior year.
Okay.
But if they're taking Algebra 2 as a junior, they probably need to wait a little bit.
Finish that up first.
Yeah, wait until the springtime to take that test.
I like it. it. So yeah, make sure you know what your goals are. Right?
That's a big part of it, for sure.
ACT score.
And make sure that goal makes sense.
Yeah. For the student, look at your colleges, see what their scholarship brackets are, see what their admittance averages are, see if you're fitting within those, and we can help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we offer small group classes based upon your score. And then we also have one-on-one tutoring where we can help a student with whatever schedule they may have. We have tutors available Sunday through Saturday.
Yeah. You can tutor with Caleb right now. You can hear his voice for an hour and a half to 2 hours a week.
And I promise I won't put you to sleep like maybe I am right now.
No way. Perfect. All All right. Well, anything else that you want to throw in there, Caleb?
No, well, just if any of you have questions and you want to learn more about the process or get the process started, feel free to reach out. I mean, myself and our staff, we want to make sure that everybody is moving in the right direction, and we want to be able to answer any questions that you may have.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Simply Smarter podcast with Caleb and Jill. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our blog at getsmarterprep.com or subscribe to the podcast to hear us talk about all things ACT. Join us next week when we talk about the importance of choosing the correct test date.